Just tell me a little bit more about Pen and Pencil and how this started specifically with the event that happened in May.
Well, back in May was a Children's Crusade March reenactment of 47 years ago, 1963. We had 1,500 kids that come out and get introduced to pen and pencil. As you know, pen stands for penitentiary, pencil stands for education. So through that reenactment of that march, young people took the civil rights history and utilized that history to address issues they deal with today. If you think about violence, drugs, gangs, that's what May 3rd did for these young people. Now, we've had a group of kids we took over to Atlanta from Parker and Wenonah to see some of their peers that deal with this in Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, all over the country. They were able to interact in a convention with pen or pencil. And here we are now kicking off a campaign in Birmingham to say, hey, young people are going to stand up. We're going to empower them to address nonviolence. And this 100 Days of Nonviolence will actually start on Sunday, October 10th, 2010, 10-10-10, and conclude on MLK Day, which is January 17, 2011. And they're going to be the front person. They're going to be the ones out there leading their peers to combat nonviolence. They signed a pledge today, as you know, the Freedom of Choice Agreement that they have to read and abide by to say, hey, I'm going to communicate, I'm going to stand up against violence in our community.
Mm-hmm. And your goal with this ultimately is to do what?
Well, it's not my goal.
Mm-hmm.
It's the young people's goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the young people's goal is they're tired of having their peers move on to actions that are not positive, to negative things that are in the community. They're tired of seeing friends or black and white, whoever they might be, dying to senseless things like social media, to things like gangs and drugs in our community. So this is not my goal. This is the young people's goal, and we're going to empower them and do things we need to do to empower the young people to make sure they have the resources and the voice to address these issues of today's society.
You said you also spoke with some of the police chiefs in other areas, and I wanted to address too. You said this is not a Birmingham problem.
It's not. As I talked to the Jefferson County Chiefs Association back in August, they said, Councilor Roberson, we have these issues all over. Chief Dodd at the City of Homewood said, we've got issues right now with our young people. We had the chief of Morris, Alabama. We had the chief of Mountain Brook. Everywhere there's adolescents with issues or combating negative things in the community. So this is not just a City of Birmingham issue. That's why I think we need to take a spiritual approach and get the ministers, the pastors involved in this process so they can start sending messages out about violence and addressing violence in the right way from a spiritual perspective. This is why we had to get people like you, Vicki, that is on the committee of Pen and Pencil to stand up as a leader in this community through media to address this. So there's a lot of concerned people. They're either ex-offenders that are part of this process that are tired of seeing young people dying. So we're going to empower these young people through the Pen and Pencil program, through the 100 Days of No Violence, to make sure that they feel like they're part of this process and making a change.
You've been involved with this. How has the process gone? Is this an easy process?
For me personally, it hasn't been an easy process. I've been with Ms. Rucker since my 10th grade year, but actually last year when I started getting really involved, going to conferences, going just everywhere with her to try to get the message of nonviolence out there. And I've actually met Mr. Roberson. Mr. Roberson has become an acquaintance of mine because I see him very regularly. Yeah.
It's easy to talk about. It's a whole different ballgame to actually do it, to get out there and actually do it. How hard is it to talk to the other youth, to talk to everybody else your age, to try to get them to stop the violence?
It's hard because people in my particular age range, they don't like to listen to anyone their same age. They feel as though they'll listen to an older person only if they yell at them, but I never understood that. You tell me something one time, okay, I'm going to do it. Even if the person is younger than me, if they say something that I even think it would be better than what I'm doing now, I consider what they're saying.
At some point, you guys, we all understand violence may still happen, but at some point, you guys have to have started. Do you think that this is a good start, and do you think that this eventually, over time, will make a difference?
I do, because the fact that these students actually showed up today and came out when they thought it was going to be cold, but it was actually very hot outside, and they actually stayed to hear what we had to say. Yeah, it shows me that they really care, and this is really going to be a big movement.
Let's see, when did this start? When did y'all kind of get started on this?
It actually started last year at the 16th Street Baptist Church March. I was not there for that, but everything after that I was there for: the Pen and Pencil, all the other conferences that we've had prior to the 16th Street Baptist Church.
And I guess on the plus side, there may not be any violence. How great would that be if y'all made it 100 days without any violence?
That would be great, though. It's a process, so we just have to take it one day at a time.
That's great.
I'm sorry, I wanted to ask you a little bit. You talked about the kids who went to the church service. Even though you person didn't go, what did they talk about when they got back about that?
Basically, they just said, well, most of them said they enjoyed it, and that was something that they really consider doing, trying not to be violent. Some people that were violent that went, they're actually calming down, and actually, that showed me that they were thinking about what they were saying in the church.